welcome into Sports Talk on the airnetwork.net. I am Greg Banks in the studio in Johnstown tonight. Joining us live from Altoona, it's Dave Shannon via Skype and Chad States from Huntington, also via Skype tonight. Jimmy, by the way, Jimmy Ty is on the road tonight. Believe it or not, guys, he is heading to the inauguration ball for our next governor of Pennsylvania, Tom Wolf. So he's been invited along with his family, so that's where Jimmy will be. Matter of fact, he's heading down there today. And as far as we go, guys, how y'all doing?
Okay, how are you?
I'm good. I'm much better. You know, I had this little medical mishap for about a month with the flu, and then a bleeding ulcer, and I'm getting over that, so it's all good. But I had some fun yesterday because I, like many millions of Americans, watched the NFC and the AFC championship football games. And let's get to it right off the bat. Let's talk a little bit about that NFC game between the Seahawks and the Green Bay Packers. I guess the question I want to ask first, Chad, and then Dave, is did the Packers give the game away, or did the Seahawks actually win that game?
The Packers gave it away. I've never seen anything in my lifetime quite like that. I mean, I don't know. I mean, you think about the improbability of being able to recover an onside kick where a guy who is trained to block just totally blew it, then getting a 2-point conversion where the quarterback throws it all the way across the field, and no, the Packers blew it. But in all honesty, to say the Packers blew it, that was a great football game to watch from a fan standpoint. Dave, what do you think?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I feel for anyone out there that may be listening to us tonight or anywhere in America that is a Green Bay Packers fan. And just to watch that unravel at the very end there is one of the most amazing things that I can think of. The other thing about it is, if I were Russell Wilson and I actually had like an earpiece and could hear what they were saying on TV, like I give a rat's what they're saying on TV anyway. But after all of the bashing that he goes through throughout the course of the game, I would have been so tempted at the end of the game. Yeah? Who's the worst quarterback in a postseason game now, huh?
Yeah, you know, I was expecting him to have a hotter hand than he had. Chad and I were on text early in the day, and you agree with me that we thought the Super Bowl was Seahawks and New England, but I didn't think Seahawks would have a difficult time like they had. And it really came down to those last 4 minutes of the game. I mean, it was just outrageous because my neighbor had called me and said virtually, hey, this one is in the books for Green Bay. And I said, don't count them out because, you know, you never know. Seahawks could come back and tie this up in overtime. And damn if it didn't happen, man. Unreal.
It was unreal. You know, when Green Bay made that interception with 5 minutes to go, and the guy slid, basically, and kind of gave himself up. I look back on that thinking, why did he ever do that? But really, at that point in time, that was the 5th turnover for Seattle. Nobody wins with 5 turnovers.
Oh,
Nobody.
man. Yeah, it was turnover
city. And it never
city.
happened before. It never happened before.
Yeah.
So I had given him up at that point in time. But you know, that just speaks to nothing but resilience. You play to the final whistle. And that's exactly what Seattle did. They did not quit no matter what. So I give them all the credit in the world for pulling that one out because they kept going at it. And Green Bay, you got to put the foot on the gas pedal and keep going with it. Don't back off. And I think that was their biggest problem.
And I'll tell you what, there's going to be a big, and I'm sure it's been up for debate at Green Bay all day today, and that is what happened there in the first half. How many times did they have the ball at the 1 yard line, the 1 foot line, the 1 whatever yard line that they had that they didn't have to? I mean, the coach, Mike could have decided to go ahead and go through with a fourth down play any number of times there, but ended up choosing to kick the field goal. And you'll talk to people, and they'll say, well, that's the smart coaching thing. And sometimes en route to championships, you take a little bit of a non-traditional approach to your coaching, and that's what gives you a championship. But Mike McCarthy, I think too many times there, I understand what was going on, and tough place to play, and if you have a chance to take the lead, go ahead and do it. But by the same token, I would have, at least on one of those occasions, would have tried for either to get it in the end zone or, if it were possible, to get a first down rather than kick the field goal.
Yeah, but Dave, you know what? That was very reminiscent of even the Steelers season this year. When the Steelers would get into the red zone and they would pound and pound and pound, then we'd only get 3 points. You know what I mean? And it just seemed typical yesterday that all Green Bay was trying to do was just get on the board, you know what I mean, and not take any chances even early on in the game, as you mentioned in that first quarter of action. Meanwhile, let me ask you this. You had mentioned about Bostic and his job. His job was basically to hit a block on that onside kick. And I believe, who was it behind him? Jordy
Nelson.
Jordy Nelson was supposed to catch the ball. He's got to be he's got to be feeling the worst of anybody in the NFL today. I mean, bar none. You know,
Yeah,
And that's, he really shouldn't. I mean, that's a situation where, God forbid any of us be, I mean, we don't make the money he does for that reason, but, that we would be in that position that he was at because what you saw was a natural reaction. There's a ball high in the air. You're pretty tall.
Yep.
So what's your reaction? You're going to jump to try to get it.
Yeah.
And if that's not a typical thing that you do day in and day out, well, heck, maybe your helmet ends up hitting the football and you can't catch it.
My only rebuttal to that is, guys, is that play, that very play right there, is practiced time and time and time again, where that guy Bostic is nothing but a blocker.
Yeah.
So
But,
that's where I
Chad,
have an issue with that.
Chad, wait a minute.
Yeah, Dave.
How many times do they practice that in front of 70,000 screaming fans? And you can say all you want about practice, and you're trying to teach a reaction. You're trying to instill a reaction.
It was natural. Yeah.
Rather than an action. However, with all of that going on, and, you look at the age of the player and everything, and it's just like, I don't know what I would do in the same situation.
You may never get there again. You know what I mean? And this might be your moment of glory, man. And
True.
And it's such a natural thing to see that ball. However, the guy had no hands. Let's face it. It came down on his helmet or face mask. So, I would probably feel bad, too. But nonetheless, it'll be Seattle heading into the Super Bowl 49 against the likely New England Patriots. And I say that only because in the AFC, guys, it was a totally different story. I was surprised at how well New England manhandled Luck and the Colts. I mean, they just from the beginning looked like they weren't even on fire, and they were sort of like a B squad, maybe that could have played Alabama yesterday. What's your feeling on that, Dave, first, and then Chad?
Well, I'll tell you, the one thing about that game was the difference in the teams being able to run the football successfully. Mm-hmm. And you were able to see that on the New England end, but you never really, you saw moments of it during the possessions by the Colts, but you never really saw the complete establishment of the running game. And eventually that starts to eat away at things. There are probably, and I think Andrew Luck is certainly in the top tier quarterbacks in the NFL. However, that being said, it's not the easiest thing to go, you got to do that on an opposing team's turf and be really good at it. Mm-hmm. The blocking has to be good. Your receivers have to be running good routes because they're teeing off on you. It's look at the Steelers in their game against the Ravens. Mm-hmm. They had no running game. What happened? Well, the Ravens were able to tee off on all of their receivers, and it just made such a big difference in the football game because that idea of keeping the defense honest. If you have the running game, you're able to keep the defense honest because they can't start to commit linebackers into pass coverage if you have a successful running game going on. But the Steelers were never able to do that, and I don't think the Colts were ever able to do that. And eventually then, I think there were two things. They talked on television. I think Jim Nantz and Phil Simms talked about the idea that the defensive line had tired out in the second half. I think the offensive line for the Colts also had tired out even sooner in that football game. No run game. it's tough to win a football game.
What's your thoughts, Chad, on that?
I was impressed with the New England secondary, in all honesty. I thought they did an excellent job of making the Colts receivers a non-factor. And the Colts have some good receivers. You know, Hakeem Nicks, T.Y. Hilton, they've got some guys that can go up and get the ball, and they proved that the previous week in Denver.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's, the linebacking core and the secondary for New England was much more impressive than what I thought they were going into that game. They made Luck a non-factor, and my hat's off to them. And I don't think that bodes well for Seattle in the Super Bowl, because Seattle's not the offensive team that they were last year because of who they're missing on offense. So New England, they came out, they were on a mission. There was no way they were losing this football game. And we'll see in 2 weeks, how much of a mission they're still on. They were very impressive.
Both of you guys got to be impressed with the play of LeGarrette Blount yesterday. And, all I can think is somebody out there probably doesn't remember that he played with the Steelers this year. And last year he actually played with New England. Were you impressed with his running ability yesterday, Dave, or is that just typical Blount?
I think obviously Belichick took him back as soon as the Steelers cut him. On a number of levels, you got a guy that knows you're now at a point where you have someone that does not have to learn the playbook when they do come in. And the other thing about it is, you look at the successful running backs in the games yesterday, and of course the one was out there in the Seattle game.
Yeah.
And then the other one was Blount.
That was the beast, Lynch. Yeah.
Lynch.
Yeah. Okay.
Marshawn Lynch.
Yeah. And
you looked at the kind of game that Lynch had, and then that Blount had, and you look at those two games, and that's, to me, that's how you're going to win a football game at this level at this time of the year. I think at some point, even if it's just for a quarter in a football game, you have to have that work really well, as I say, just to keep the defense honest.
Chad, did you think there was any point in the game yesterday where somebody from, the Steeler faithful might have said, we should have kept the guy, regardless? Huh?
I hope not, after what he did on the side. He put himself in that position in Pittsburgh.
Did. Yeah.
And that's the unfortunate part, because they really could have used him against Baltimore. And had he not have did what he did, we wouldn't have been watching Le'Veon Bell going down thinking, oh, my God, the sky is falling at this point in time. Because we would have had Blount as a backup, but a tiger never loses his stripes, and LeGarrette Blount's going to do something else stupid somewhere along the way.
Do you think that maybe Belichick can handle him easier, though? He seems to be able to control people. For instance, they have a running back by the name of Gray, who, if you remember, had 289 yards, I believe, in one game this year, and he started tweeting stuff out there, and we haven't seen the guy since. Yeah. And he actually was the major running back for New England. And Belichick put him on the bench, man.
Yeah, I think that he will. There's a leash factor there, though. And I don't know how long the leash is and how much it varies from player to player as to what. Because, I think what you see in the news conferences with Belichick when they have them is pretty much who the guy is.
Oh, yeah.
And when you see that, you come to understand that even the way he answers questions and the way he interacts with the media, he has a leash in his own mind for each of the members of the media.
Yeah, he's no nonsense. He really is.
Yeah,
no nonsense.
So that's the Belichick side of it. And unfortunately, obviously, Blount is the type of guy that needs to understand that there's a leash and that it pulls back really hard when you do something really stupid.
Isn't that the truth? Yeah. This is the AirNetwork.net. It is Sports Talk on a Monday night tonight. Greg Banks in the studio. Dave Shannon in Altoona, Chad States in Huntington. Let me ask you guys this. There is, I don't even know if it's a rumor now. Apparently, each team gets to bring their own balls, to a football game. Obviously, you got to put so much pressure in each one of those balls to make them official. However, it seems that New England deflated their balls yesterday to the point that, if you remember, it was raining and it was wet out, that the balls were deflated, easier to carry, easier to catch. They're saying it's like, sort of like Spygate, that if the NFL finds out that Belichick indeed authorized these guys to deflate those balls yesterday for New England, what should be the penalty? Now, we know that they're going to go to the Super Bowl. They're not going to, keep them out of the Super Bowl. But, Dave, you first and then Chad on the deflated ball gate, as it were.
Well, if they had the evidence to prove it, this goes back to their previous penalty when Spygate happened, was giving up of draft picks.
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, I'd just come to the point where I'd say, okay, this is the second time. You don't get any draft picks, or maybe you only get half of what you were scheduled to do. I mean, you get really serious about it because, first of all, okay, I understand you want to win, but for Pete's sake,
at what cost?
You would look at the Colts and say, "Oh, we better cheat here because those Colts look pretty good." And there were games, the Colts did, have a pretty decent season and all, but wow. You would go ahead and stoop to that low against any team at all. But in particular, and I know you're exactly right, Greg. All of those things you mentioned are good for the as far as the bad weather conditions go. The deflated ball, easier to hold on to the snap, the exchange between the quarterback and the center, and by the same token, then better for a receiver to catch. Here's the thing about the deflated balls in the end. Both teams had to play with it. Okay?
Well, that's true. Is that true? I understand, though, the Colts brought their ball. Did they use their balls on offense, Chad? Is that how that works?
Indianapolis would use their own set of balls, not New England.
So now if they weren't privy to this thing and they've just brought regulation balls, I think there's an unfairness there.
There is. Again, today's point, you're not going to prevent them, or your point, you're not going to prevent them from going to the Super Bowl. It's a fine. It's a loss of draft picks. But this is a pattern, and this is what Belichick does. He looks at that line and says, "How can I just inch right up to it, or maybe cross it just a teensy weeny little bit?" Where he's always pushing that edge.
How about bringing in receivers who say, "I'm not eligible," and then the defense is all screwed up? I mean, he plays within the realm of the game. Let's face it; it's legal, but it's not ordinary, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, he looks for the loopholes, and that's what he's doing. And now this is a rules violation if they prove this. And I don't know how they're going to. I mean, if the Patriots are smart, they just go and pump up those balls right at the end of the game, and you're never going to know.
Because isn't it interesting how we never saw the videotape of Spygate after all these years? They destroyed the tape. You know what I mean? We never saw the tape. We just heard of the tape, of course, being utilized prior to that championship series with New England. So,
hey, by the way, can I get Belichick to do my taxes?
Sure. There's probably a loophole in there, man.
He'll probably get you another grand or two.
No doubt, yeah. It's theairnetwork.net, Monday Night Sports Talk here live. Of course, we always re-air these on demand back up on our website at www.theairnetwork.net. It'll be up there the next day, and you'll have the enjoyment of hearing it again. So, NFL Super Bowl matchups, Super Bowl 49 coming up after, next Sunday, because we have the Pro Bowl. That's just a vacation coming up this Sunday. But tell me, guys, what's your prediction? Who you calling in the Super Bowl this year? I kind of like New England just a little bit.
Agreed. I got to go with the Patriots. I'm not a fan of the team. But I'll tell you what, there's some serious questions there. By the way, guys, I did not have a chance. Did anything come out about Richard Sherman at all today?
No, and I wanted to make mention of that. That do you think, and I was going to go back to that in our last segment, but let me ask that question now. Do you think in the second half they should have just thrown at the guy? I haven't heard what his injury was.
Well, here I got his injury report. He's fine. He has all his tests came back negative. All he has is a sprained elbow at this point in time.
Okay.
He will be cleared. He will be playing in the Super Bowl. Same way with safety Earl Thomas, who had a dislocated shoulder. He's cleared. He will be playing in the Super Bowl as well. To me, I would have thrown at Sherman at that point in time because I know he was nursing that elbow.
Yeah.
But you know what? Though, look at Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers was still not the same quarterback that he always was in that game.
Yeah.
When he took off for that one run in the fourth quarter,
I could see him hobbling.
You could see him hobbling. He didn't have that pocket presence where he knew he had his feet as an escape route.
Yeah.
So, I don't know if he was even capable of attacking Richard Sherman at that point.
But if I'm sitting up in the booth, let's face it, we could clearly see it at home. The guy was holding his elbow as if, he had a broken elbow or broken arm. I mean, he just held it at his side as if he had it in a sling.
What it reminded me of, Greg?
What's that?
Funny bone. You hit your funny. That's kind of what it looked like. That's kind of the way you hold your arm.
It seemed like it lasted a long time, Dave.
Well, and if you strain that area and that nerve, it's like that's the only place that your arm will feel comfortable at all, is if you kind of keep it tucked in.
Yeah.
Now to the end, whether what Favre could do, or not Favre, listen to me,
That's
Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
What Aaron Rodgers could have done, there's no problem there. He could have picked that. And
Yes,
I'll tell you
could've.
what, every receiver I'd have had on the right side, it would have been go straight at Sherman and then go to the sideline.
Right.
Because now you got him, so he's at a point where you're going to turn him, and he has to use his left hand,
yep.
or left arm to try to do anything to you.
That's what I was thinking, too.
I would have exploited that, and even if he was playing possum, I'd have still, I'm sorry, every receiver that lined up across from Sherman saw him doing that.
Oh, I would have hit
saw
him with a couple of those, yeah.
Absolutely. I would have said run straight down, sideline pattern, and keep doing it. And I can guarantee you that Aaron Rodgers would have been able to hit him, hit whatever receiver, whether it be Jordy Nelson or anyone else you could think of on the Green Bay Packers team.
No
I would have gone right after him, and they never did. That was the crazy thing
That's
about
the crazy
it. I never
part,
saw them go to.
Yeah. And Chad, not to let you
I don't know,
off
Chad,
the hook.
what do you think?
Well, I didn't want to let Chad off the hook because he never gave us his Super Bowl prediction yet.
I didn't get the chance. I didn't get the chance to yet.
Well, you're up.
I'm going to take Seattle by 3, only because what happened yesterday tells me that there's an act of God on their side.
Okay.
Because they had no business winning that game.
Oh, isn't that
so
the truth?
I'm going to take the Seattle Seahawks by 3 points.
That's why Russell Wilson was crying at the end of the game. He realized it was a miracle. My God.
So, something just says, "Hey, you've got something else going on."
You had that divine order going on,
That's
man.
right.
That's what it is.
Divine
Okay.
intervention.
All right, so I'm looking at New England. Dave's looking at New England. We didn't give points, but you're giving up 3, and you're saying Seattle at this point.
Yep.
So we'll see how all that works out. Let me, since we haven't gotten together for a while here on the airnetwork.net and sports talk in general, moving over to Monday nights, let me ask you about the Steelers season. Since we last met, Dick LeBeau has quote-unquote resigned, probably asked to leave. And I don't know if you guys heard the same rumor I did, or if it was a rumor or reported that Tomlin asked him to leave. And now he never said he's retiring, which opens up the floodgates because he may end up with Cincinnati or Cleveland or somebody. But who else now is departing that team, let's say, before OTAs or before the draft, or maybe thereafter? Do you think Troy leaves? Also, Ike is out of there. We know Kissel's gone, and probably Harrison. What's your feelings on that, Chad? And then I'll get Dave to respond.
Well, I think every one of those guys are gone, and I think that's part of the reason why Dick LeBeau left as well, was he knows that those players that he has built up into that defense, it's time for them to move on.
You think he left under his own accord, or did he get asked?
You know what? I actually truly want to believe that it was all mutual, because Keith Butler his contract was running up, and I don't think the Steelers wanted to lose him.
Yeah.
He was the next defensive coordinator, so they were either going to lose LeBeau or lose Butler. And I think they wanted to, maybe, go with the youth and go with Butler at that point in time. I think LeBeau's going to wind up in Arizona, folks. I think he is going to end up, I think he's going to wind up out there because they lost their defensive coordinator. And let's see, maybe their head coach used to be an offensive coordinator for the Steelers, so there might be a connection there. I think he and Arians link up, and I think that's where Dick LeBeau goes. But the Steelers, to me, I think they overachieved. I did not have them picked to even remotely win the division. So for them to pull that off is just amazing. But they need to start to get younger. So, Harrison and Kiesel and Palomalu and Taylor, hey, thank you. You guys did a great job. Loved you for many, many years. But it's time to move on. It's time to put down the pasture.
Out of all those guys you mentioned, the likelihood of anybody wanting to stick around and play for someone else might be Ike. Because I just have this feeling he wants to run his mouth somewhere else. And you know what? And get burned, quite frankly. Dave, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, well, no great loss wherever Taylor goes. I don't care. Yeah, maybe he can go out and sell hot dogs on a corner there by Heinz Field.
Yeah.
Or hand out ketchup packets. But
and I don't want to be sour grapes or anything. But I've listened to his talk show, and I can't understand a word the guy says sometimes. I don't know if his dialect from coming down south or what that is.
No, it's these guys that get this attitude that in order to be the hip guy or the guy that's accepted by the guys in the hood or whatever it is, knock it off.
Well, that's my cousin Johnny Harris that actually hosts that show for Trib Live every week, and he's also a writer for Times Review. And sometimes I gather, and Johnny's a very articulate kid. He's a little younger than me, but nonetheless, I think he scratches his head too. I don't know if he understands a word that Ike's saying half the time.
Yeah, and I know Taylor can talk if he wants to.
Yeah.
He can sound like any normal person with, any one of those people on that football field that went to college and took advantage of their college education are very well-spoken people.
But remember, some people just went to play football. They didn't go. They just tweeted out, "What do you mean I got to go to class?" And Ike might have been one of those guys. I hate to say it.
I'll tell you what, though, if you have to, I've never sat down and had to memorize a playbook.
Yeah.
But you got to have something upstairs to be able to do that, don't you?
That's true. And he did have some longevity in the league. Chad, having said that, to wrap up this segment of Sports Talk on Monday night with Chad States Live from Huntington and Dave Shannon from Altoona, what do you see next season? They obviously are going to extend Ben's contract. That's the first thing I heard. So he's going to get his money. But what do they need to do in the draft this year? First Chad, then Dave.
Well, they have to. First off, I think they have to get a second running back.
Yeah.
They have to be able to spell Le'Veon Bell in. He has to be able to take a break every once in a while. The guy's not that durable. And he's going to break down. They have to get better on defense. And we were talking about defense even at the beginning of this year. We knew that was going to be their Achilles heel. I think they have to address it non-conventionally for the Steelers, and they have to get somebody in free agent. They have to go to free agency and pick somebody up that could be a difference maker.
Right.
And then go into the draft based off of that. Who that guy is, I don't know. But I think that's what they need to do because that offense is Super Bowl caliber.
Okay.
I mean, it's there. I mean, it's got all the makings of it being, top notch in the league. It's just a defense that is lacking.
And the offensive line is finally meshed. At least we saw remnants of it at the end of the season. Dave, your feelings to kind of wrap things up on this segment?
Yeah, boy, do I wish some of the young guys that I saw playing in the college football championship here at the beginning of the month, that some of those guys had decided to leave college and go ahead and go to the NFL because I'll tell you what, there were some running backs there just flat out knock your eyes out.
No doubt.
However, that's not going to be the case, but Chad's right. That's something that has to be addressed. You know what my second pick is?
What's that?
If there's someone good that's left there at that point in time, a quarterback. You have to start to look at what do you do because Ben's got, let's say he's got 3 years left.
3 years, I'm thinking too.
That's being on the plus side.
And Gradkowski's been on the bench too long.
Yeah, although I just could have smacked somebody when they put Gradkowski in there at the end of the playoff game, and he's doing fine.
Yeah.
He's a competent. He is an NFL quarterback, and all of a sudden, what did he run? 2 plays, and then they sent Ben back in.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, let him finish the drive.
Hey, well, listen, who I saw at a playoff game, one of those 36 bowl games on television watching his son, I saw Cliff Stout. Maybe we can get Cliff to come back, huh?
No.
Or Neil O'Donnell even. One of those guys. Hey, anyhow, guys, hold on. It's Sports Talk Monday night here on the AirNetwork.net. Greg Banks in the studio, Chad States in Huntington, Dave Shannon via Skype in Altoona. We've got more coming up in 2 minutes here on the AirNetwork.net.
Hey, Frank, some of us are going out for lunch. Want to join?
No, thanks. I won't be able to make it for a while. My son's heading to a 4-year university this fall, and I'm watching every penny I can to help him with tuition.
Yeah, that can be so expensive. My daughter decided to go to Pennsylvania Highlands Community College. She'll earn her associate degree in 2 years before transferring to earn her bachelor's. I'll be able to save thousands by her attending Penn Highlands first.
Pennsylvania Highlands, really? My son is stuck on attending a 4-year university right away, far from home.
My daughter was the same until I explained to her that she'd end up with the same degree and far less debt. I don't want to see her starting out her adult life with a lot of debt. Penn Highlands just made the most sense. So enjoy lunch.
Hey, wait for me.
I thought you couldn't afford to eat out.
That was before you mentioned Penn Highlands. How do I find out how to get my son enrolled?
I'll fill you in over lunch, but start by visiting Pennsylvania Highlands online at pennhighlands.edu.
Kick off your appetite with great food from Original Italian Pizza in downtown Huntington, where Bearcat fans huddle up before and after the big game. OIP in downtown Huntington provides your taste buds with appetizers, dinners, pizzas, subs, and so much more. Stop by OIP in downtown Huntington for a sandwich, meal, and cold drinks 7 days a week, or call ahead for takeouts at 643-0665 or 643-0666. OIP in downtown Huntington with the best food and the lowest prices in town.
Need printing services done with quality, on time, and at a reasonable price? Then stop by Images Print Shop in downtown Huntington, where they can help you design and print brochures, business forms, business cards, newsletters, flyers, and so much more. Images Print Shop is your hometown print shop and web hosting service dedicated to excellent and quality service at affordable prices. See what Images Print Shop can do for you online at imagesprintshop.com or call us weekdays from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. at 643-1796. It's Monday Night Sports Talk on the airnetwork.net, moving from Thursdays to Mondays. Welcome to our kind of maiden voyage with yours truly, Greg Banks, in the studio. Chad States Huntington and Dave Shannon live in Altoona.
Good evening.
We're going to take it down just a notch since we haven't been together, guys, and there have been some movement in the Pirate camp. Talk a little hot stove real quickly with the Pirates. The latest acquisition out of Korea. Man by the name of King Kong.
Kong.
He's another infielder that brings promise to the Pirates. Dave, we'll start with you. Looks like they could have a pretty healthy infield with him. Could be some competition. You got Harrison probably at third this year. Alvarez moving, of course, to first. We've got at shortstop, remind me who we have as shortstop.
Jordan Mercer.
Okay, Mercer. And that could be actually the competition, because they're talking about bringing this Kang up, or Kong, and he plays in Double-A ball, basically, over in Korea. So that would be what, the affiliate of, like, the Altoona Curve or something? I don't know.
That would be, the Curve's Double-A.
But he's got all these home runs. So at second base, we're solid there, and first base, and then the outfield is doing well. Tell me where this guy fits in, and is he worth the money?
I think actually, they got him at a steal. When you look at the total overall price, because it's $11 million over 3 and a $5.5 million opportunity at the end of that. And a lot of people speculated that it was going to be around $5 million a year for the first 3 years. And then, whatever, the stakes would go up from there to get a fourth year out of him. And they got him at a pretty good price, assuming everything pays out. Now, I watched some video of the guy today. YouTube's a wonderful thing, and MLB Network really understands the Internet. I got to give him that. You can find all kinds of pertinent video anytime you need to. And he's a big guy. I mean, he looks big. It's kind of tough to tell because, genetically the Koreans tend to be a little bit shorter. So I'm not sure if he's like a normal American height and everybody else is smaller, but he looks big up top. Now, when I saw that, you know what my first reaction was? Finally, we can get rid of Pedro Alvarez. That was my first reaction. Because if this guy's good for 40 homers a year, I can figure out a way to make that work. Whether it necessarily be at shortstop, and working with Jay Hay, Josh Harrison, I can figure out some way to get him into there on a regular daily basis so that he's providing the things that he can, and maybe I keep Mercer at short. It won't happen that way, but by God, if I had a 40 home run guy, and I've been ready to get rid of Pedro Alvarez for 3 seasons now, and it's not happened, And that was my first reaction. It was like I saw the guy, and the other thing is, Neil Huntington said he will not spend any time in the minor leagues in the Pirates system.
That's what I
heard. He is
heard,
going to be in Pittsburgh from day one, and he will not go to the minors at all. Good idea. I mean, it's a baptismal by fire, and you better be used to that major league, that influence it has on your life outside the game, and be ready for anything else that goes on as far as the major league level goes. So he's going to be up there from day one. And I don't know if it was Clint Hurdle or Huntington intimating that Clint Hurdle would be able to find a way to take the most advantage out of him as possible.
What are your thoughts on that, Chad?
I think it's a move that the Pirates had to make. They needed some middle infield depth. I actually think it's a good sign for Pittsburgh and Pittsburgh fans to see the organization going out and spending money, in the international market. They're investing in their team. They're doing their research. I think this guy has a lot to bring to the table. Whether he turns around and hits 40 home runs in the majors is a whole different ballgame. That we have yet to see that. But I think it's a great move by Pittsburgh to do this. I think Mercer is a serviceable shortstop, but I think you might have seen his upside already. I don't think Jordy really gives you much more than what he gave you last year. So for the Pirates to try to shore up, some more infield home runs and more infield RBIs, I think it was a very good move on their part. I was surprised that they did it because it's not typical for the Pirates to do something like that. Correct me if I'm wrong, Dave, but you just don't see Pittsburgh doing something like this. So, hats off to them.
They've dabbled at it. Remember, they got the kid from India that could throw 100 miles an hour, and they thought they were going to make something out of him, and that never really happened.
Yeah, another project.
But I don't think this is going to be quite the same kind of result that you'll see here. Here's one other thing, though, to keep in mind, Chad. I know you talked about Jordy and what his upside is. I think one of the things that Mercer, for the first time in his career, now understands, he was the number one shortstop the entire season, and Clint Barmas was only the backup guy. The season before, it was the other way around. I think, and I don't care how long you're around the major leagues, until that's your job and your responsibility every day when you go to the ballpark, it's completely different the year that it happens that it is your job. And you do have to do that every day. And keep this in mind, too. There was one other thing that caught my eye, Chad. I like Jordy Mercer. He had a couple of games there where he just looked horrible defensively. But, hey, it happens to the best of them. Guys make mistakes, and sometimes they're a little more glaring for some than others. But MLB Network, ranking all the shortstops in Major League Baseball, Jordy Mercer is ranked, in their opinion, 6th in Major League Baseball. That's a pretty damn good rating for Jordy Mercer.
I didn't see that. Does that surprise you? That surprises me. From watching all the baseball that I see, that surprises me.
I would think he'd be a little more middle of the pack, but I'll tell you what, MLB Network, and they tend to be more Moneyball oriented anymore. They're really into most of the guys on the MLB Network, with the notable exception of a few, tend to want to go with the numbers and try to figure out where a player stands based on those numbers. And, Numbers Never Lie, I think, is the one show on ESPN, too.
And that's good. I watched Jordy play down in Altoona, and he was a very good player down there for them. He's a nice guy. He actually would be one of the guys that would come out and sign autographs for the Curve and do different things. So that's good. You want to see a guy like that have success.
Well, speaking of Moneyball, not to cut you off, but let's talk about, we know the outfield's pretty much set, but the pitchers and catchers this year. I mean, who do you guys have in the rotation, and who are the starters, and who are some of the guys that will be coming in to close?
I don't know. Whoever it is, well, you're going to – Melanson's the closer. I don't think there's any ifs, ands, or buts.
That's right.
Your setup guy, I think, most of the time it's going to be Tony Watson. I think they're going to stick with him there at the back end. And there's speculation when you read around that they're trying to make sure that Tony Watson will maybe someday be the actual closer for the Pittsburgh Pirates. Hopefully he has enough innings left in his arm by the time that rolls around, because I'll tell you what, I thought Melanson had an outstanding season last year and did not seem to be tired by the end of the season. Here's my problem. What the heck is going to happen with the starting pitching there? Outside of Garrett Cole, and I'll give it, A.J. Burnett, I think, is going to be a consistent, right around 500, maybe a couple of games over. He brings something to the clubhouse, too. We always talk about that. What's a guy bring to the...
Oh, he's leadership and veteran, yes.
Yeah, so there's something to be said for that. But I'll tell you what, outside of those two guys, and maybe Vance, I like Vance Worley at the end of the season. I don't see Francisco Liriano being any factor at all this year. I think he's gone by the middle of the season. And I don't know if Edinson Volquez makes it the whole way through. That's the guy wears his hat funny, and you can't tell anything about the way a guy wears his hat, but he's a little bit out there.
Well, your depiction is that they have a pretty weak staff for them. Unlike, I'm going to throw this into the mix. Unlike the Nationals, who just seem to have too many pitchers, and then they add Scherzer today for $210 million. I think it started out at $150 million, and then the stock market went up, Chad. I mean, tell us a little bit about that. Somebody's got to go on that staff.
I was shocked. I don't think it's a good move for the Nationals to make, because I think they need to spend their money somewhere else besides the rotation, because it was solid. They didn't need to do anything. But with that said, they did. And, they got the top free agent starting pitcher on the market. There's no doubt about it. And, they're also trying to make a statement to their fans that, hey, we're in this to win it. We feel like we have a competing ball club right now. Let's see if we can get a starter that can put us over the top, that we know can start a game one and be that ace. Because as great as what their pitching is, Gio Gonzalez is a fringe number one starter. His name escapes me now. Steven Strasburg. He is you don't know where he's going to land as a number one starter. They're looking beyond a division. They're looking at National League Championship Series and how they'd start to line up for that. So, to me, I think that the addition of Scherzer was unnecessary to a certain degree, but I really think that it sends a message to all of the Washington fans that, hey, we're out here, last year was unacceptable. We're going to try and fix that right off the bat.
And, the other thing about that, Chad, is everyone wants to have a Madison Bumgarner. And I think if there's one guy that could be Madison Bumgarner, it is Max Scherzer. He is an extremely serviceable pitcher.
Yep.
And, I think he could be that guy.
Hey, plus the Nationals had some great success against Bumgarner last season, too.
Yeah, they did. But what Bumgarner did, you don't see that often. The only time I've ever seen that is Oral Hershiser, when he did it for the Dodgers back in '88.
Yeah.
I've never seen a pitcher totally dominate a postseason like Bumgarner did. So, with that said, that's the exception and not the rule in the game.
But I still think he has the ability to do that. And like you said, they're looking beyond their division or anything else. They're looking at the National League Championship and what they need to get there, and that's going to be the one that do it. I'll tell you what, I would love. Now, the Pirates and the Nats seem to have a good working relationship as far as some of the trades they made over the course of time. Wouldn't it be nice to see Gio Gonzalez come over to the Pirates?
I think Pfister or Jordan Zimmerman are the two they're going to move because they are free agents next year. But either one of those two, Dave, would be excellent for the Pirates rotation.
Let's hope.
Jordan Zimmerman comes in. He's a staff leader right off the bat.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Well, we'll be watching this throughout the hot stove season. Of course, training camp not that far away. I guess we're probably only about a month away for pitchers and catchers to report down to Bradenton, huh?
That's right.
I know Jordy Mercer was actually down. There was a voluntary camp that they have going on. And I think Jordy, after after realizing that these conversations were going on. The long distance bill was going cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching in Pittsburgh as they were talking to Korea.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe they use Skype. But at any rate,
That's familiar.
the bottom line is that I think Jordy saw that and it's like, you know what? I am committed to this. I know I can do it, and I'm going to show this team every way I can that this is my season and I'm going to be the shortstop that they want for the entire season.
So he's going to want to own that from the get-go then, huh?
Yeah, to show that kind of effort because, I noticed the names that were not there, and it included many of the people that you would suspect that would not be there. McCutcheon, even Josh Harrison, he was packing backpacks with Edgar Schneider.
Okay.
But he wasn't there. Walker wasn't there. Alvarez wasn't there. And I'm trying to think. There was one other notable that wasn't there. But at any rate, he was one of the stars that went to this voluntary camp. And, that's a good thing. Good for Jordy. And I hope it pays off for him.
All right. Well, listen, we've got some more coming up. We'll talk Penguins, Penn State wrestling, high school sports, some miscellaneous things. It's Monday Night Sports Talk on the AirNetwork.net. We'll be back in 2 minutes with Dave Shannon live on Skype from Altoona, Chad States live on Skype from Huntington. Yours truly, Greg Banks, in the studio. Stick around.
The Burns Law Firm is an experienced law firm located at 104 South Center Street in Evansburg, just steps away from the Cambria County Courthouse. Attorney Tim Burns and his staff will provide you with professional expertise in DUI, family law, personal injury claims, plus other areas of law at reasonable rates and fees. Contact Attorney Tim Burns for a consultation by calling 814-471-1701 or online at www.attytimburns.com. For more information.
What does sacrifice mean to you? Is it giving up your time and energy to keep America safe? Is it putting yourself in harm's way to protect our nation's way of life? No? Then maybe it's giving up that third latte to take care of the heroes that do.
The VFW makes it easy to help. Just call 1-855-9-HELP-VET. That's 855-9-HELP-VET.
The VFW. No one does more for veterans.
This message brought to you by the Huntington VFW Post 1754 on Penn Street. Restore the luster of your home or business now by calling Ted's Painting and Drywall at 814-641-0479. Ted's Painting and Drywall does quality exterior and interior painting, staining, faux finishing, trim work, and wall repair. Plus, Ted's Painting and Drywall can remove wallpaper and finish drywall for one room or the whole house. Ted's Painting and Drywall, a licensed contractor offering a 20% discount to seniors and 35% discount to churches. Book your work now at Ted's Painting and Drywall. Call 641-0479. If you're searching for a used vehicle or perhaps a used boat for a leisurely trip on the lake, find them today online at penswoods.net. From things for sale or things to buy, the free classifieds at penswoods.net have it all. From houses for sale, apartments for rent, or even things to trade. Penswoods.net is the region's largest site for free classifieds. Check it out today and make money or save money at penswoods.net. It's the AirNetwork.net. Greg Banks in the studio tonight. It's Monday Night Sports Talk Live. We'll have a rebroadcast, of course, on demand on our front page coming up tomorrow. And you'll be able to listen for the next couple of days. We've got Dave Shannon live in Altoona, Chad States live in Huntington. Dave is our go-to guy for the Penguins and all things Penguins. And I just wanted to make note that Sid Crosby is an all-star again, along with Malkin and some other notable. Dave, you can update us on what's happening with the Penguins these days. And, the Rangers seem to own these guys. What's going on, man?
Well, there's a couple of things going on, and I think this will be addressed as time goes along. Here's something that I saw for a big test for Coach Mike Johnston early on here, and that was a couple weeks ago. They played Montreal in Pittsburgh, and Montreal dominated them, made them look absolutely horrible. They could not get the puck into the Montreal end to try to score at all. I said to a number of people that I talked to, I said, we're going to find out what kind of coach we have. Okay, because it's easy to roll along when things are going well and everything's clicking. and maybe you don't have any injuries, or at least there's not as many injuries as they've had from time to time. I said, this is going to tell us what kind of coach he is, because if he can react, and the next time, because I knew they were going to play the Canadians again in a week, because they played them Saturday night in Pittsburgh, the following Saturday in Montreal. And you know what? He showed me that he knows what he's doing, because that game at Montreal was nothing like the one in Pittsburgh. Now, why they weren't ready to play either the Islanders or the Rangers here over the past weekend is beyond me, because in professional sports, you know what you have coming up, you know what you have going in, and if you're worth your salt, you got to be able to adjust on the fly. And the Penguins just did not adjust on the fly well in either of those games, the Islanders or the Rangers yesterday. The Rangers game is fresh on everyone's mind. And so they think about that. But that Islanders game was equally as frustrating to watch unfold. So I think we've got a good coach. Is he going to now be able to make those in-game changes as quickly as he needs to? That was one of the things that a lot of people said that was a shortcoming of Dan Bilesma, was that he never made those in-game changes quick enough. Mm-hmm. Good to change from game to game, but sometimes it's game 7.
Right.
And there is no other game.
Got to do it while it's in the mix. What about Fleury, man? He looks like he may be having some problems there in the net, man.
Well, in all fairness to him yesterday, in the loss to the Rangers, what happened? 3 of the 4 goals that he gave up, one was his. That's his fault. One was his completely. The other 3 were either or Rangers in front of him, net presence in front of him by the Rangers, and the other one Scuderi put in.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, Scuderi had his stick down on the ice. The puck comes in, hits Scuderi's, because Fleury has it totally in control. He's down on his knees. He's right in front of it. It's coming right to him, and Scuderi put his stick down, and the puck goes flying right in the net. Now, Rob Scuderi, hey, I'll tell you what, for me, he is the reason why the Penguins won that Stanley Cup against Detroit not all that many years ago, because he was the guy that got down and stopped the puck from going in with, 20-some seconds left to go in the game. So I'm not ready to throw Rob Scuderi under the bus, but that goal yesterday was actually his and not had nothing to do with the Rangers, per se. The other ones, I don't know what the heck was going on. Why do you not assign somebody to Kreider to keep him out of Fleury's face, so that Fleury, when he can see, when he has a clear shot to look at a shot that's coming in on him, mm-hmm. I'll tell you what, he's pretty damn good. So, there's a couple of things there that I'm going to give Fleury a little bit of a break. Maybe he's a little bit tired. I'll tell you what, I think he's played more in the first half of the season this year than he has in any other previous season, because I think Greiss only started, Chad, maybe 6 games, somewhere in that area. I think his record was 4-1-1 yesterday coming in when they put him in to replace Fleury. So,
well, we're only mid-season yet, though, right? I mean, we're not even
but still, that's a new drag for Fleury. He's had a lot of back-to-back nights, too, because of Greiss not playing as much.
Oh, yeah.
And so that's something you have to keep in mind. So it's a little bit of an adjustment for him. I'll tell you what, if Looks could have Fleury killed a bunch of people in Pittsburgh yesterday.
Oh, really?
Because they zoomed in on him a couple of times sitting on the bench, and I have never seen a young man, and that young man in particular, that was that PO'd about what just happened.
Well, as you mentioned, I think these guys could be a little road weary, because we are seeing a couple of back-to-back games here now, that we didn't see, obviously, at the beginning of the season, where they had maybe 3-4 days down, before these games. And it's got to be a little rough, man. And when you're in the net and you're wearing all that equipment and, you're flopping and flinging and moving, and I don't know how many saves he's had, but, it seemed like they were just using the poor guy as a battering ram last night and the night before. So it's difficult at best, but I know they're pros, man.
Yeah, and they make the money to do it, and it's something that I think Fleury will be able to adjust to and be able to move on. I think the coaches have to adjust to that, too. They're going to get some presence. There are still times when I look at that team, and Steve Downey's a tough player.
Oh, yeah.
There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. However, there are some guys. Kreider is a name that should come to everybody's mind because he is a big dude.
Yeah.
And you don't get him out of the way of Fleury very easily. I still say at some point they need to get themselves a big goon.
Yeah.
They have to have a goon on their
Well, Downey
team.
is sort of like their goon, though, isn't he?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what. You want this,
A goon that can
God
score.
bless him. God bless him. He's a great, he can provide you offense. He's fast. Downey has a lot of upside. However, there's those times when you need that brute force.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what. Every time the Penguins have won a cup, they have had that bigger guy that's able, whether it was Ulf Samuelsson, whether it was Shell, when they brought Shell Samuelsson in, and Hal Gill, when Hal Gill was with them when they won the cup against Detroit.
Right.
Those you need one of those guys on your team at some point just to keep those other guys honest.
Right. Well, Dave Shannon will keep us posted on the Penguins every week here on Sports Talk on the AirNetwork.net. Dave Shannon live in Altoona. Chad States live in Huntington. Chad, you've been following the Penn State wrestling team recently, and, of course, big wins over the weekend. First against Rutgers and secondly against Purdue. How those Matt Rats doing over there at Penn State?
Hey, they're not doing too bad. And for anybody who's listening that are Penn State wrestling fans, I'm going to tell you one thing. Just like Aaron Rodgers told all those Green Bay Packer fans, RELAX.
Relax.
Relax. Kale is not pulling any red shirts.
We're ranked
Your
number
team
5, right?
Your team is going to be fine. Just because you're not going to win a national title this year doesn't mean the sky is falling. There is plenty of blue chippers still left in that room for years to come where Penn State will just go on another tear starting next year, and that's exactly what they're going to do.
So you don't think they'll be even able to back into one? What about the Big Ten this year? You think they could take that?
And I mean that basically is the national championship. You win the Big Ten, you're going to win the national tournament. That's just the way that ends up being at this point in time. But no, I mean they've got some good quality, solid wrestlers. But for the first time in 4 years, you're actually looking at a couple weight classes where they have some holes. Zach Bites is starting to come down to reality at 149. He's dropped his last couple matches. At 157 pounds, they finally got Dylan Alton back. They're All-American, so he's wrestling well. But that was a hole for a time to time. Cody Law did a nice job at filling in, but he's just not that elite wrestler quite yet in his career. At 165 pounds, they have Garrett Hammond, who is a freshman. So they've got some holes, some patchwork places where next year, whenever they get some of these kids off of red shirts, they bring back Nico Megaludis, 125-pounder.
Yep.
2-3-time finalist. They bring back Zane Rutherford at 141. He finished fourth in the country last year. They bring back Jason Nolf, who is a freshman who just, by the way, went to the Southern Scuffle over the holidays and finished second as a unattached redshirt freshman, so to speak. So Penn State is just loaded for bear for years to come. So, folks, relax.
Yeah, let me ask you this.
Trust Kale. He knows what he's doing.
Yeah, there's no problem in packing the rafters at Rec Hall. Who do they have at BJC this year? That's the big match coming in.
And I will be at that match. That is Iowa. And it is completely sold out.
Now, how do they configure that arena to pack all those people in there? Because they tell me it's stacked and packed to the ceiling there. And I just can't imagine BJC being packed for a wrestling match. I just can't.
Oh, yeah, believe it.
Oh, it will be.
It's a great thing to see, isn't it, Chad?
Absolutely.
So does it feel like everybody's down near the mat, though, in that, Chad?
No, you're pushed away from it, but that's okay because you have a large crowd surrounding you that is heavily into this thing. It's almost like a WWE event to a certain degree, with the way they drop the mat in the center of the court. And then just everybody around it. But no, it is a fantastic
So they don't elevate
event.
it like they do at the Nationals then? They bring it up off
Yeah,
of the floor?
yeah.
Okay.
They'll elevate the mat. Yep, absolutely.
Cool.
They will.
Yeah, I've never experienced that.
It is absolutely wonderful. And, now I don't think Penn State going into that match, I don't think they're going to win that match just because they're just a little bit too short-handed this year. But regardless, there will be 15,000 people from the state of Pennsylvania screaming at the top of their lungs, and it's going to be a wonderful thing to see.
That's more people than they have in Huntington, 15,000 people.
And it's also more people than don't have at the next 10 home men's basketball games.
You had to bring that up. We aren't even talking basketball today.
No.
Hey, let me ask you guys this real quick. Got about 2 minutes left. So, sort of on my miscellaneous stuff. We followed it from the beginning, Dave and I, when we did Talking Football. NCAA finally lifts these sanctions. $60 million stays in Pennsylvania. Joe has recovered his 409 wins. Your feelings when you heard that the other day? First Chad and then Dave.
My feelings were kind of mixed on that, because I watched a lot of people going back and saying, hey, we got what we deserved. But let's keep in mind, wins are one thing, people are another. And let's keep in mind why those things were taken away. Now, granted, I am big time on the side of the NCAA overreached their bounds here.
Yes, they did.
I really think that they did. But I don't think that it's really time for us to completely celebrate 409 when there's another social issue out there that kind of trumps all of that. I think I don't think it should have ever happened to begin with.
Right.
But the fact that it did, it means that, while we need to be happy that it's there, let's not be totally exuberant that 409 means that everything is just now back in place in its happy valley once again.
Well, and I agree to some extent. I'll mention something about that in a moment. But Dave, your feelings on that whole thing?
Well, there was a question about the overreach. I think there was a lot of pressure that was created the minute this became a big story. I think all the media jumped on that, and Penn State has to, because remember this too, there's a lot of Penn State haters out there.
Always has been.
And so the idea, as soon as this became public knowledge that this story existed, boy, I'll tell you what, they were out there with the guillotines.
Yeah.
Or as they say nowadays, guillotines.
Guillotines.
I don't know. I like guillotine myself.
I do too.
Sounds more French.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, that's what they were out there with, and they wanted it. And you know what? The NCAA does pay attention to what the media talks about.
Yeah,
whether
but sadly they
admit it or not, and they came down with some big sanctions. Now, here's the one thing, and I think Chad points out, this is a serious issue that goes even beyond what happened here, because for every abusive child that you may find on a campus somewhere in America, there is some other similar problem that is going on related to athletics, because athletics thinks that they can operate under a different set of rules.
Oh,
you even see this when they become professional, and they'll go out and do things. The law is the law.
Right.
And it's there for a reason. And I don't care if you're an athlete or if you're the guy that rides on the garbage truck every day and picks up garbage.
No special entitlement,
Yeah, the laws apply to you equally.
Right.
And you have to get that into your mind. And I think maybe that's the bigger issue that's pointed out by the whole failure at Penn State as to what went on there, how it was handled. You're not above the law.
Well, I appreciate your thoughts, both of you, tonight. By the way, I wanted to make mention, I watched a documentary over the weekend produced in Happy Valley called 365 Days in Happy Valley. If you get a chance, watch that documentary. You'll certainly learn a lot and probably go back through a lot of the feelings we all had when we heard about, of course, Joe Paterno being fired. And do you guys think his statue will go back up rather quickly now?
I think it's going to take some time. I don't think you're going to see it up in the next maybe 5 years.
Really?
Wow.
Yep.
Oh, man, I would hope that it goes back up soon. Because, again, I just enjoy the legacy of the man so much, Not the fact he was a football coach, but he was a philanthropist. He was a humanitarian. We know, and I think
Name's
Dave
on the library, Greg.
Yeah, I know. Dave and I kind of feel like, he was a, maybe there was some spirituality to it. So I just want them to re-heal and, of course, rekindle his legacy. That's all I want. And I don't think the NCAA can ever take that away. That's my feeling. So, Hey, guys, thanks again for joining
Thank
us
you.
on Sports Talk, man. We'll do this again Monday night, Dave.
Sounds good to me.
All right, Chad?
Yep, I'm good.
All right, dudes. Thanks again. We'll see you back here for Sports Talk Monday night from 7 to 8 live on the airnetwork.net. Thank you for listening.